The Battle of the Somme, fought from July 1 to November 18, 1916, was one of the largest and bloodiest battles of World War I. Here's a detailed case study of the battle. Background: the Battle of the Somme was part of a coordinated effort by the Allies to launch simultaneous offensives on the Western, Eastern, and Italian fronts. It was intended to relieve pressure on the French forces at Verdun and to weaken the German army. Key players: Allied forces, primarily British and French armies. Central powers: German Empire. Strategic objectives: Allied objectives, break through German lines, relieve pressure on Verdun, and inflict significant casualties on German forces. German objectives: defend their positions, maintain their front lines, and prevent Allied breakthroughs. Preparations: the Allies conducted an extensive artillery bombardment for 7 days before the battle, intending to destroy German defenses and barbed wire. Over 1.5 million shells were fired. The battle, July 1, 1916. Opening day: British attack. The British Fourth Army launched an attack along a 25-mile front. However, the artillery bombardment failed to destroy German defenses adequately. As British troops advanced, they faced heavy machine gun fire. Casualties: the British suffered about 57,470 casualties on the first day, including 19,240 killed. This remains the bloodiest day in British military history. Subsequent phases: fighting continues. Despite the initial setback, the battle continued for months with numerous assaults and counter-assaults. Introduction of tanks. September 15, 1916, saw the first use of tanks in warfare by the British at the Battle of Flers-Courcelette. While mechanically unreliable, they demonstrated the potential of armored warfare. Conditions: trench warfare. Soldiers faced horrific conditions in the trenches, with mud, water, and decomposing bodies contributing to the misery. No man's land. The area between opposing trenches was filled with barbed wire, shell craters, and the remains of fallen soldiers. Outcomes: territorial gains. The Allies advanced about 6 miles at their deepest penetration, a modest gain considering the scale of the battle. Casualties: the battle resulted in over 1 million casualties killed, wounded, or missing, with both sides suffering heavily. Strategic impact: the battle weakened the German army but did not achieve a decisive breakthrough. It highlighted the devastating nature of modern industrial warfare. Analysis: tactical lessons. The battle demonstrated the limitations of artillery bombardments and the need for combined arms operations, including the use of infantry, artillery, and tanks. Technological evolution. The introduction of tanks and improved tactics laid the groundwork for future developments in armored warfare. Psychological impact. The immense loss of life and the stalemate reinforced the horrors of trench warfare and contributed to war weariness among the civilian populations. Legacy: the Battle of the Somme remains a symbol of the futility and horror of World War I, with its high casualties and limited territorial gains. It also marked a turning point in military tactics and technology. Certainly, here's a more detailed analysis of the Battle of the Somme, focusing on the strategic, tactical, and operational aspects of the battle, as well as its broader historical context and impact. Background and strategic context. Strategic objectives. Allied strategy. The Battle of the Somme was part of the broader Allied strategy to launch simultaneous offensives on different fronts. The aim was to stretch German resources and force them to fight a multi-front war. The Somme offensive was also intended to relieve the French army fighting at Verdun by diverting German forces. German strategy. The Germans aimed to hold their defensive positions along the Western Front, which they had fortified with deep trenches, bunkers, and extensive barbed wire defenses. Preparations. Allied preparations. The Allies, particularly the British, spent months preparing for the offensive. This included stockpiling ammunition, moving troops into position, and planning the extensive artillery bombardment intended to destroy German defenses. Artillery bombardment. The bombardment began on June 24, 1916, and lasted until the morning of July 1. It involved over 1.5 million shells aimed at German trenches, wire, and artillery positions. The bombardment, however, failed to achieve its intended effect, as many shells were duds, and the German defenses were deeper and more resilient than anticipated. The battle, July 1, 1916. The first day British offensive. At 7:30 a.m. on July 1, British and French infantry went over the top and advanced across no man's land. The British attack focused on a 25-mile front. German defense. The Germans were well prepared for the assault, having taken shelter in deep bunkers during the bombardment. Once the bombardment lifted, they quickly manned their machine guns and artillery positions. Casualties. The British Army suffered approximately 57,470 casualties on the first day, including around 19,240 killed. The high casualties were due to the strong German defenses and the inadequacy of the preliminary bombardment. Phases of the battle. Battle of Bazentin Ridge, July 14 to 17. The British achieved some success by capturing Bazentin Ridge, marking the first significant penetration of the German second line. Battle of Delville Wood, July 15 to September 3. Fierce fighting occurred in Delville Wood, involving South African troops. The battle highlighted the brutal nature of close quarters combat in the dense forest. Battle of Pozieres, July 23 to August 3. Australian forces captured the village of Pozieres, but at a high cost, enduring relentless German counterattacks and artillery barrages. Battle of Guillemont, September 3 to 6. British and French forces captured Guillemont after several attempts, paving the way for further advances. Battle of Flers-Courcelette, September 15 to 22, marked the first use of tanks in warfare. Although many tanks broke down, their presence had a psychological impact and demonstrated the potential of armored vehicles. Conditions and challenges. Trench warfare. The battlefield was characterized by a network of trenches, which provided protection from artillery and small arms fire but also created conditions for a stalemate. No man's land. This area between opposing trenches was often filled with barbed wire, craters, and mud, making it extremely difficult and dangerous to traverse. Weather and terrain. The weather played a significant role, with rain turning the battlefield into a quagmire of mud, complicating movement and logistics. Technological and tactical developments. Artillery. The Battle of the Somme saw extensive use of artillery, both in preparatory bombardments and during the battle. However, the limitations of artillery accuracy and shell reliability were evident. Tanks. The first use of tanks at the Battle of Flers-Courcelette demonstrated their potential, despite mechanical failures and limited numbers. Infantry tactics. The battle highlighted the need for better coordination between infantry and artillery, as well as the importance of small unit tactics and the use of creeping barrages.